to look at other reasons, though, why this is, going down the way it is. So I think this is an interesting thing. So this was from mid-April, but Oklahoma's continued unemployment claim moving average increases for the first time in over 40 weeks. So, and we'll show a little bit of economic data, and I'll try to explain it and not have everyone's heads explode. But like, economic data last year has been really messed up, right? Because you had like that chart was showing, since the crash of 2008, it's just been a straight line. Every single month, we're just adding like a steady number of jobs. And we've been doing that for a decade plus until the pandemic. So now you've got these like huge swings. And so 40 weeks ago, was last summer timeframe, people were still losing their jobs. I mean, the oil industry was way down because of almost negative oil prices in May of last year. So, I mean, you still had like a lot of people losing their jobs. And then since then, they've slowly been getting them back. Well, now unemployment claims ticked up again in Oklahoma, which suggests that more people are starting to like either lose their job or maybe they went back and then the job said, just kidding, we weren't able to keep you. And so, you're seeing now more disruption is what this headline means. So even though our unemployment rate in Oklahoma is very low, it kind of suggests that like maybe things aren't all that they appear and that some people are still struggling to find work or businesses are struggling to keep people employed, for a host of reasons. And our initial claims are still pretty high. Like the number of claims that we have out there in the world are still much higher than they were, a couple years back. So I think, they're trying to push everyone now into job fairs and getting back jobs and doing all this stuff. But, obviously there's still a lot of disruption. Somebody, well, you and I both, right? We're both in the event business. I mean, last week was the first time I've DJ'd an event in over a year, and I've got a few more coming in this summer, but there's still a lot of disruption in that industry. Restaurant, food service,
And there's a lot more fear. I mean, not to dive into this too much, but like, I'm sure if you surveyed Americans being like, how comfortable are you planning things in advance? Like that number would be drastically down. So there's so many industries like events, job fairs, things like that, where people are just not scheduling. Like the inability to predict the future situation has gone down. The travel industry has seen this. Entertainment as a whole is like, I just bought my season tickets for OKC Broadway, and I was like, I don't know, like, hope everything stays good so I can see Dear Evan Hansen. So it's just a lot of uncertainty now that also ripples into the effects of events. So even though the pandemic is winding down, it doesn't mean that people like trust that January of 2022 is going to be very different of January 2021.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing, just a couple tweets that we put out about various economists that we follow. So there was an article in the Washington Post that says a massive reassessment of jobs is going on by workers. The problem is, the problem is we are not making enough money to make it worth it to go back to these jobs that are difficult and dirty and usually thankless. You're getting yelled at and disrespected all day. It's hell. And so some people are skeptical of that. Like, this quote from this kind of neo-lib economics person is, did folks not know that working sucked before COVID? My take is more like, why can't it be both? Yes, the unemployment insurance and being able to make some money. Yes. I mean, obviously some people are going to take advantage of that and maybe not go back to a job that isn't great. But also, if you follow anyone in the restaurant industry, if you follow anyone in the event industry, there's a lot of a-holes out there. And, if you personally had a bad experience with COVID or if you have risk factors, there's a lot of people that you don't want to go work around. Like, it's easy for me locked in a basement office by myself for the last year to be like, I'm not worried. But like, I literally can lock my door and never interact with anyone. But if you're a restaurant worker, you don't have that choice. If you're a frontline grocery worker, if you're a, you know, et cetera, you don't have that choice. So, I mean, I think that does mess with your desire to go back to a job you probably definitely did not love to begin with.
Right. And I think we can't ignore like the mental health implications that COVID has had. I know I myself has taken a step to be like, okay, what makes me happy? What fuels me when I like can't go out to a bar, when I can't, see friends every day? Like, what is keeping me going? And it's like, of course, after having this time to like really think, and like it's been a stressful time, but we've seen over 600,000 people die. Like mortality is weighing heavily on us as Americans right now and on the world as a whole. So it's like maybe it's not worth it to go to your dead end job that doesn't pay you well and that people are rude to you, that people demand things of you that are out of your control. I mean, the service industry has never been great. Of course, we all knew that, but it's like, where are your priorities now? I bet COVID has changed a lot of people's priorities, and what you look for in employment also depends on those priorities as well.
Yeah. And, I just know from my own experience with the event industry, like, we were some of the ones who took it the most seriously. And I'll be honest, like, you feel a little bit laughed at for how serious you wanted to take it versus how serious we did actually take it. I mean, I just know a ton of venues, that, have had to beg for rescue packages.
Yeah.
Who shut down immediately and had no intention of bringing anyone back. I mean, musicians and performers and stuff. I think a lot of them are still shut down, like they still aren't planning on touring anytime soon, or certainly not the level they were. And it's because it's not safe and there's a risk that things could get bad again. And then, like your planning gets blown up, travel gets hard, et cetera, et cetera. So, and my point of bringing all that up is those are massive disruptions to the economy and the labor force and to millions of jobs. Like you can't, the wedding sector alone is billions and billions of dollars. Concerts, touring, all sorts of live events. So travel. So anyway, a lot of reasons why those might be happening.
Yeah.
And then just one more here, restaurant owner on CNN complaining that he's going to have to provide health benefits to his staff. And it's like a funny thing, after all this, that like we're still debating whether or not people should have access to health care if they work a frontline service job. Like when the pandemic first happened, like people were talking about paying $2 an hour in hero wages, which again is like not much in my opinion. Like I comment on another thread. The average wage, like I think in like the restaurant sector, and is nationwide, so obviously much lower some places, is like somewhere in the $15, $16, $17 an hour range. $1 an hour is like a 6% raise. It's nothing. $2 an hour is like a 12% raise. So it's like, it's not like even during the height of the pandemic where we were rewarding these people with like some massive increase in their salary. It's like you get, a 10% raise, which very nice if that's your raise for the year. But like, it's not like gonna change your life completely. It's gonna be a couple $1,000s more per year.
Right.
And so now people are realizing like, oh shit, now we gotta provide healthcare. Now we gotta provide,
Right, which is like, okay, if
benefits.
these restaurant owners, because I believe that there's many small business owners out there that are like, I can't provide healthcare, or like, this is insane. Like, this is never something I've had to budget for, and now I'm dealing with the pandemic and I'm having to budget this. But it's like, if you just voted in more progressives, the government could take care of this whole healthcare issue and you wouldn't have to worry about it.
I have never got why employers want to be in the healthcare fight. Like, well, okay, let me take that back. The perverse reason they want to be in it is because they have you over the barrel. You need health insurance. It is probably the single most required form of insurance in our world, right? Is like, because at some point you're going to get sick, and American healthcare is very expensive, so you got to have health insurance. So employers know that if I am the one providing it to you, like that is a significant carrot or stick potentially to get you to come and work for me. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the reason they want it, is because otherwise then the only thing they'd have to really negotiate on is wages and working conditions. And they don't want to make those better either, but it's way easier to just be like, well, hey, we'll give you some shitty health insurance. Come work for us. So, I think the good ones should get out of it myself. Like, I think it's a huge expense. I think it doesn't actually help them find and recruit talent. I think they spend an insane amount of time and money. Like, the insurance companies are raking them over the coals too. They're paying out. The employees aren't happy with the insurance. Not like it keeps them there. I mean, except in this sort of like, bargaining sense maybe. But yeah, that is one thing I've never quite understood from the business community, is why they don't get more on board with it. So anyway, yeah, so how to tweet, self-reports, because, like all these things are fixable, right? Like you can improve the working conditions, you can improve the wages, you can improve healthcare. And like everyone's like, oh, but you'd have to raise prices. And it's like, I mean, not that much. I mean,
No.
it's entirely possible to pay your workers a living wage and also provide,
Well, and like we have to
and
talk about like
good
what
wages.
is a living wage, right? So we're focusing so nationally on this $15 an hour. Like Biden passed it with like federal employees. Like that's great. But we have been arguing this so long that like $15 an hour doesn't cut it anymore. Like we should be arguing for $20 an hour. And so it's like these fights take so long. And in some ways this data takes so long to come in that, by the time it's all processed and, economists have projected, it's like, okay, well, this is really old. But it's like we're still not arguing for that much. Like we're still not arguing for places that can really reflect that change and make a big impact with that change, because there's still way more you need to survive.
Yeah, and so I pulled up a tweet that I had up about, it's Monday, so you should know that if the minimum wage had increased with the rate of productivity since 1960, it would be $23 an hour now, which is like what it is in much of Europe, in many Nordic countries who have similar GDP per capita that we do. So it's like America could easily pay $23 an hour minimum wage. Like it's totally within the realm of feasibility for the economy.